from various states of India, Indonesia, Nepal, and Armenia for attending today's live webinar on applications of artificial intelligence in healthcare from behavioral to psychological perspectives. Dayananda Sagar College of Arts, Science and Commerce is affiliated to Bangalore University, offering various professional courses like MBA, MCOM, MCA, BBA, ECOM, BCA, and BSc. The research cell is aimed at enhancing the research capacity of faculty and students to ensure constructive initiatives for research and innovation that encourages continuous improvement of professional skills to facilitate students as well as faculties towards quality teaching and learning environment. The research cell collaborates with various professional institutions to involve outside stakeholders for active research initiatives. Currently, the teaching community is missing their lively and interactive classrooms due to COVID-19 pandemic. With consideration of mental health, behavioral to psychological perspectives, today's honorable speaker, Dr. Sriparna Saha, is going to address regarding applications of artificial intelligence in healthcare from behavioral to psychological perspectives. Now I request Professor Mukesh Soni to give a brief introduction about our speaker, Dr. Sriparna Saha.
Good morning, everyone. It's my pleasure to introduce today's speaker, Dr. Sriparna Saha. Dr. Sriparna Saha received her BTech degree from RCC Institute of Information Technology, Kolkata, India, and her ME and PhD degrees from Electronics and Telecommunication Engineering Department of Jadavpur University, Kolkata, India. She is currently an assistant professor in the Department of Computer Science and Engineering of Maulana Abdul Kalam Azad University of Technology. Prior to that, she was associated as a faculty with Jadavpur University and two other institutions. She has more than 7 years of experience in teaching and research. Her research area includes artificial intelligence, image processing, machine learning, and recently she is giving more focus on deep learning. She has over 70 publications in international journals and conference proceedings including IEEE, Elsewhere, Springer, etc. She is the author of a book on gesture recognition published by Studies in Computational Intelligence, Springer, currently available in many online book retailers. She is also the reviewer of many international journals. Her major research proposal is accepted for startup grant under UGC Basic Scientific Research Grant. Not only that, she also got university seed money for setting up her laboratory. She is the member of Board of Studies for Maulana Abdul Kalam Azad University of Technology and also the member of governing body of ITL Institute of Engineering. Madam, we all welcome you. Now I request Dr. Sriparna Saha to begin the session.
Yeah, hello, good morning to everyone. I think I'm audible. Can you hear me? Can you please respond?
Yes, madam.
Yeah, okay. So let's start today's discussion. So the topic is application of AI in healthcare. So as I have already talked in the morning with the head of the department, he told me that participants can be from different domain. So let us presume that you don't have any idea about anything about this particular topic. So if you just look into this particular heading of today's lecture, the first key term that you are going to encounter, that is the AI. So what is AI? The full form of AI is artificial intelligence. So if there is something called artificial intelligence, is there anything called natural intelligence? Yes, there is something called natural intelligence, and that natural intelligence basically are the intelligence of the humans. From the human intelligence, the term intelligence came. So what is human intelligence? Suppose there is a very hot pan in the gas stove. Are you going to touch the pan directly? So right now you can say no, we are not going to touch the pan directly. Then our hand is going to be burned. But it was the first thing that you could have done in your childhood. You might have once touched the hot pan by your bare hand, have burned. About learning. That is our day-to-day experience taught us how to handle different scenarios. So by the learning, our human intelligence grows day by day. And if that learning or this human intelligence we can give to any machine by some artificial means, the means can be some coding, could be some hardware design, that is transferring of intelligence from the human to the artificial machines. That is the artificial intelligence. So that was the first key term that is present in the today's topic. That is the AI. And the next key term, that is the healthcare. So what is healthcare? So just understand today's current pandemic scenario. Just few months earlier, if you were a teacher or a student, could you have ever imagined that work from home could be possible in our day-to-day life? I couldn't. I couldn't have imagined that I could work from home as a teacher. But right now, we're all working from home. From home, this scenario has different advantages. The advantages like the least amount of commute time. We can stay at our home, we can do our household chores, and at the same time, we can perform our office works. Is that all? Is it have some disadvantage? Yeah. As we are all working from home and we are doing a very little amount of exercise, and for a chronic amount of time, for a huge amount of time, we are sitting on a particular chair working from our desktop or laptops. So these particular postures for working for a several amount of time throughout day for the last few months could have been generated these type of body symptoms to your health. That is, you could have achieved some back pain or some pain at the elbow. These are the different physical aspects or the behavioral aspects of the healthcare domain. So is that all? Yeah, only the physical health that is going to be hampered or that is getting currently hampered by this stay or longer duration of stay at our home? No. What about the mental health? Not only the physical health, at the same time, our mental health are also going to be or also hampered in this particular lifestyle. So the children in our home, they are constantly looking at their mobile phones, playing video games or looking at the Facebook, Twitter or different YouTube videos, but they don't know what are the application of that particular video or the games that are going to be have in their brain. They are not concentrating on that. They are just only thinking about, okay, I have a free amount of time. We have lots of amount of time. We don't have any school. We do not need to go. We cannot even go for playing as well. So what can I do? I can easily got my parents' mobile phone and play games. So we haven't thought about what is the mental health that is destroying day by day. So that is all about healthcare that we are going to discuss today. So we are going to discuss how AI can be beneficial in the physical health as well as in the mental health. So the physical health, how you can judge it by the gestures. And what about the mental health? Judging of mental health is not that easy, that you cannot judge from the outside. For that, you need to go much deeper, go deeper into our brain. We need to understand the brain signals to understand the mental health. So from that, the today's lecture topic becomes application of AI in healthcare from behavioral to psychological perspectives. So first discuss about the behavioral perspective, then we are going into the psychological perspective, then we are going to merge both the two areas and concentrate how we can achieve both the two domain at the single time. So first, it's about the behavioral perspectives. So the behavior that could be judged by the gestures. Recognition, there are different principles, techniques, and applications are already present that we have noted down in this particular particular book. If you have the free time, you can look into this book to understand more about the gesture. So in the book, you can get in the introduction chapter that is how the different gestures can be differentiated. What are the meaning of different gestures? For today's lecture, as we are talking about more about the healthcare domain, right? So the healthcare that is basically comes into this particular domain, that is the emotional gestures. We are going to talk about positive and negative gestures. So this is the sub-3 of this total gesture segregation part that we are going to concentrate today. Gesture recognition techniques or the methods of gesture recognition. That can be done primarily by 2 ways. One is the image processing. You can capture images from your mobile phone or from your laptop or desktop camera or from the cameras you have. Then you can process the gestures. That was the gesture processing using images. Now, if you can done that, you could have seen that the image processing techniques have 2 major constraints. First, to do this image processing, you need a huge amount of data to get a particular accuracy level. To gather that huge amount of data is a time-consuming as well as cost-consuming way. Another way of recognizing gestures that can be done using the sensors. So the sensors, there are different sensors are available. The sensors can be placed in our body, that can be attached to our human body, or it could be placed somewhere else at the room. The gestures that could be placed somewhere in the room, and from that particular position, the sensor is going to concentrate or that is going to monitor our gesture. This type of the sensor, that example is Microsoft Kinect sensor. Another type of sensor for this gesture recognition techniques that are very much fruitful, that are the accelerometer sensors. The accelerometer sensors need to be attached to our body to recognize the gestures. So for today, let's discuss about the Kinect sensor. So this is the Microsoft Kinect sensor. This is the version is Xbox 360. So in this particular sensor, you need to place this Kinect sensor somewhere distant from our human body. The distance that could be from 1.2 to 3.5 meter. That is the range of the Kinect sensor. In that sensor, there are basically 3 different sensory concepts, 3 different parameters that you can sense by this Kinect sensor. The first sensor, that is basically the vision camera or the RGB camera, red, green and blue. That is the RGB camera you have. Apart from that RGB camera, you have an IR projector and an IR receiver. Now, what is the principle of this IR? IR works in the principle of time of flight. So that means this IR projector is projecting the IR. The IR is going towards the human body and it is reflecting back to the IR receiver. And in the IR receiver, you are receiving this particular IR to understand how much distant the human is from the Kinect sensor. RGB camera, you can capture the image, the traditional images, and through this IR projector and IR receiver, you can collect the depth information of the subject. To have some voice gestures. So to recognize the voice gesture, you have the multi-array microphone that is placed in this portion of the Kinect sensor that is there as well. In the Kinect, there is a LED that is a light emitting diode is there. That is just to ensure whether the Kinect is running properly or not. As well as this particular Kinect sensor have one tilt position, that is the motorized tilt is there. So the Kinect can automatically tilt in the direction where the human is going. So that was another feature of the Kinect sensor. By these Kinect sensor, what you can recognize, you can represent the human body using 20 body joint coordinates. These are the 20 body joint coordinates, and each body joint coordinate is going to be represented by the 3 dimensions. What are the 3 dimensions? X, Y, and Z dimension. So what is the x-axis? X-axis is along the Kinect sensor. Y-axis, that is the vertical of the x-axis, and the Z, that is Z to the front direction of the Kinect sensor. That is the depth map. That is by which you can understand, or by which the Z-axis value you can understand how far the subject is from the Kinect sensor. So this is all about the Microsoft Kinect sensor. So now talk about the healthcare. So the common disorders that can be of different disorders are there, but for this current topic, we are concentrating on the disorders that mainly generates from the sedentary lifestyle. That is currently we are performing working from home. So these are the main certain disorders or the disease names, and these are the common symptoms. And for each of the common symptoms, you can generate the skeletons using the Kinect sensor. Now, these gestures can be modeled using different applications or different domains of the artificial intelligence. One particular artificial intelligence technique that you can use here, that is the fuzzy set. So for the fuzzy set, there are two different types of fuzzy set mainly. One is the type 1 fuzzy set, another one is the much higher level of the fuzzy set, that is the type 2 fuzzy set. So let's first discuss about the type 1 fuzzy set. This particular type 1 fuzzy set, that in this particular paper published by the Springer journal, here we have modeled this by the type 1 fuzzy set and using the triangular membership function. So just see, this was the work proposed. So this is a simple example of how we can start working on gestures. So what you can do, there is a Kinect sensor will be there in the room, and the Kinect sensor is going to do what? Sense the person moving in front of it. So our subject is moving in front of the Kinect sensor. Now, there is, in any artificial intelligence technique, you need basically two sorts of data set. One is called as the training data set, another is called as the testing data set. So from the training is what? Whenever you are training the system. So what is training? We have already discussed about the learning that is in the hot pan process, right? That by the learning, human learns what to do and what not to do. So that was the learning. Now, if that learning we need to impart to a machine by artificial means, the machine also needs some type of data. That data are basically the training data set. So by the training data set, you need to recognize the fuzzy matching parameters from that. So this is basically the training database that has been, from that training database, you have been extracted the features, and from that features, you have designed the fuzzy membership values. So that you need to be stored in this particular position. Now, what about the testing data set over here? Testing is this, that is the online, that what we are doing, that when the person is moving, that is in the real time. So as from the real time data, you are capturing the person using the Kinect sensor. This real time data is our training data set. Sorry, this is our testing data set. So this testing data set is matched with the training data set to identify whether any of the 8 disorders are present. That is, we have discussed the 8 disorders are present in the subject or not. If the Kinect sensor, by the recognition of the gestures, by the Kinect sensor and matching using the fuzzy sets, we understand that yes, there are some disorders present in the human being, or then we need to warn the subject that yes, you have getting certain symptoms. So basically, we are not saying that we are going to replace the doctors. Obviously, we are just saying that if the symptoms can be understood as the first hand side, that is whenever the symptoms are generated in the human body, at that particular point, we can recognize that. That is basically we are trying to do. So that is basically the healing mode. So if one person has been noticed that they have some disorders, so the subject will be warned, and the treatment. So treatment is basically some videos consisting of different exercises to overcome or to do some body movement. By the exercises, the person can do some body movements to overcome the diseases. The healing mode. So if the healing mode has been successfully done, then the person again start working on their day-to-day work. Then again the Kinect sensor is going to sense, and the same principle is going to be occurred once again. Now, if the person doesn't show any disorder symptoms, then it is going to be the tracking mode. That is, the person is again will be moving, and then we are going to sense the Kinect. That is basically a 24/7 total scenario. And for this, we need, if the particular disorders are there, we need the corresponding physiotherapy was also needed. We need to ask the doctors, we need to consult the doctors what is the particular physiotherapy they can suggest to the persons having one particular disorder. So this is the work proposed. So we have considered these disorders and the corresponding RGB image that can be captured from the kinase sensor along with the skeletons that is recognized by the kinase sensor, you can see. And these are basically the feature vector. So for these kinase sensor data from this particular skeleton data, what type of preliminary features you can extract? You can extract the angle between different joints and the distance between different joints. These are the primary features that you can extract. So these are the features that we have extracts. And these are the samples, the sampling of just 2 disorders I have given. Now, after recognizing the disorders and their corresponding features for the training data set, what you need to do for one particular disorder, for one particular feature, you need a membership curve. This membership curve can be of different type. It could be triangular, it could be Gaussian, it could be trapezoidal as well. So you need to design a particular membership curve. So we have this particular work, we have concentrated on 2 different membership curves. So why, just understand why these 2 membership curves are there. So if a person have that particular disorder, suppose in this particular example, suppose lumbar sciatica, the person that is in the testing phase. In the testing phase, a person has the lumbar sciatica. So this is the ideal feature vector should be. So if this is the ideal feature vector for most of the subject in the training data set, what happens? Our beta value should be here. That is the value of the beta should be this 0.3851 for the lumbar sciatica. Now, a person that is in the testing phase are showing symptoms of the lumbar sciatica. So what should be the feature vector value? That is the first feature of that feature vector should be the closer to this particular value. The value, suppose the value is 0.37. Okay, so now if that is 0.37, so beta value now becomes 0.38. Now what is the value of, what is the membership value of 0.37? So it will be something like that. So the membership value will be something like 0.9 from this. So it is the 0.38 value. So it is the 0.37. So we are just drawing a line here that is cutting this particular position. So this is basically the 0.9 membership value, right? So if the person having this lumbar sciatica disorder and the membership value is coming as 0.9, so you can understand that you can recognize the lumbar sciatica disorder efficiently. And for C, the person is showing lumbar spondylosis, this particular disorder. So what could be the feature vector? That could be 0.4, correct? So what will be the 0.4 if you placed in the lumbar sciatica membership curve? So it will be something like that. So what will be the membership function? Then it will be something like 0.2. So that means the person is not, or is not the gestures that is done by the person that is actually lumbar spondylosis, and you are matching it with lumbar sciatica. So the membership function value will be very less. So that is why we have chosen this particular triangular and Gaussian membership curve, such that if the feature vector value is close to the mean, this value, either this beta or M for Gaussian, then the Gaussian membership value as well as the triangular membership value will be the highest, that is the 1. Otherwise, the value is going to be decayed and its value will be very less. That was the ideal choice of these 2 membership functions. Other than that, you can choose trapezoidal membership function as well for this particular application. But all the other, that is the L membership function, is not applicable here. So this was the accuracy of the fuzzy matching that has been reported in our paper, that we have compared triangular membership curve and the Gaussian membership curve. And this was the result for the 15 different subjects that we have tested our experiment. That is the testing subject. That is, we have tested from subject number 1 to subject number 15. And these are the 15 subjects on which we have tested our data set. And these are the accuracy comparison. From the accuracy comparison, you can understand in most of the cases, triangular membership curve outperforms the Gaussian membership curve. So that was the ideal choice. Now, if you are proposing any work, is it sufficient enough to compare your particular work with your, that is, we have here, what we have done here, we have compared triangular membership curve and the Gaussian membership curve, and both of the ideas are proposed by us. But if when you are proposing any work, that is from the research perspective, I would say that you need to always validate your work with some existing well-known approaches are there. So there are 4 different approaches where they have considered similar type of work. Just see, everything has been done with the healthcare or with the tracking. That is, they all have used kinet sensor data, and our particular is the triangular membership value outperforms all the other existing works at that time when I have published the work. So this is all about how you can done the type 1 membership fuzzy set using or for the application of healthcare. So now type 1 membership have some disadvantage. So that disadvantage is that it doesn't model the intra-level and inter-level uncertainty. That is, interpersonal and interpersonal and intrapersonal uncertainty are not modeled using the type 1 fuzzy set. For that, we need to go to the type 2 fuzzy set. And the type 2 fuzzy set, you can refer to this paper that is published by the SCI Index journal by the Elsevier. The impact factor is currently. In this particular fuzzy sets and systems journal, we have proposed how you can model the pathological disorder recognition system using type 2 fuzzy classifier. Now, I'm not going deeper in the type 2 fuzzy set as the time is very short. So let us concentrate on another sort of AI technique. That the one sort of technique was fuzzy set. Another sort of technique, that is the ensemble classifier approach. So this particular is a book chapter that is published by the Taylor and Francis. In this particular, we have proposed how ensemble classifier approach can also be easily applicable in the healthcare domain. Particular ensemble classifier approach. So what happens in earlier scenario? What we have done, we have one particular classifier. Suppose it's a type 1 fuzzy set, then one particular fuzzy set, then one particular classifier is there. If it is type 2 fuzzy set, then also one particular classifier is there. But we are not concentrating on the group of classifiers. We are not implementing our work on different set of classifiers and taking the data or combining the data of all the base classifiers to decide what is the class level of the test samples. That we can achieve using this ensemble classifier. In this particular ensemble classifier, we have used tree classifier. So rather than this tree classifier, the base classifier for your case can be a type 1 fuzzy set or a type 2 fuzzy set can be. Or it can be different deep learning techniques, or it can be SVM in one classifier. You can use KNN. Different algorithms can be take as different base classifiers here, and the predictions of the individual base classifier are combined and the weighted voting to decide the class of the test sample that could be done using the ensemble classifier approach. Now, this ensemble classifier approach can be done using 2 ways. One is known as boosting, another is bagging. So what is boosting? So what happens in boosting? You can see that is the bold line. This is basically a hyperplane. If you are well known about the SVM, you know that there is also a concept of hyperplane. So what does hyperplane do? Hyperplanes basically segregate the data between different classes. So if we have drawn, this is the hyperplane, that is a bold line as the hyperplane, we know that is whatever data that are present in this part that will belong to the class 1, and whatever data that is present the right side of the particular hyperplane that belongs to the class 2. And if there are the misclassified, so see these blue lines should, that is the blue squares, should be right side of the classifier, and the red circles should be at the left side of the classifier. But there are different misclassifications are there. To handle the misclassifier, you need to concentrate on the misclassified data. That is, now the misclassified data have been given some weightage. Based on that, we are changing the position of the hyperplanes. And this is how we are reaching the best accuracy could be possible. That is the method of boosting. Another sort of method for the ensemble classifier, that is bagging. What happens in bagging? Bagging is basically, the name came from bootstrapping. So what is bootstrapping? It basically segregates the total training database into certain percentage. Suppose the total database size is something like, suppose 100, and upon that 100 you need to take only 5% of the data. So that is 5 training examples. So that is that bootstrapping size n, that is one particular subset of the data is basically n. On that n, you are taking the X% of the training data set, and that data you are giving to one particular base classifier. Then you are getting the one particular class level for this particular classifier. Same thing you are doing for other part of the data set, that is the training data set, and you are checking what are the results you are getting, what are the test results you are getting for the n classifiers for this bagging approach. And then you are going to do the majority voting to understand what is the final output class of your particular algorithm. This is all about the bagging. So we have done the boosting using the AdaBoost technique and the bagging using the bootstrap aggregating method. And these are the accuracy that we have obtained for 3 different subject groups. These are the basically the age group of the subjects. We have taken 3 different data sets from the Jadavpur University Artificial Intelligence Lab under the guidance of Professor Amit Konar. And this is the comparison level of the accuracy. Now, after the accuracy, we have also measured the mean processing time. Then you can see that is for, we have seen, that is the majority of the cases AdaBoost outperforms bagging. But if you go for the mean processing time, you can see bagging performs much more better. So this is how you can differentiate which algorithm to take for your final approach. So these are the other sets of performance metrics, and the description and the equations are there. I'm not going to detail over here. So, and this is the results. That is the result for one particular age group that we have compared the ensemble classifier with all the other existing algorithms from different papers. And these are the comparison results we have obtained. Okay. So this is the comparison of the algorithms for 30 different rounds. So till now we have discussed everything about the healthcare perspectives. So, okay. So actually I think the time is very short over here. So I hope next day we can discuss about this behavioral perspective. So for just today, I'm just disconnecting it. Yeah. Hello. Hello, am I audible? Hello.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. So all the participants are requested now that if you have any question that you can, we can start that question answer session, madam.
Yeah, I can continue the presentation. I think there is a network disruption. What do you want? Should I continue or?
No, you can continue, ma'am. Another 10 minutes.
Okay. Then it will be, I will be able to continue to complete the today's session. Okay.
Sure. Yes.
Okay. So basically, we are talking about. I think can you is it okay now? Can you see the screen?
Yes, it is visible.
Fine. So that is the next topic that we are going to discuss. That is the behavioral perspective. So for the behavior, as we have already told, we need to go for the brain signals to understand the. Sorry, we are going to now discuss the psychological perspective. So for the psychological perspective, we need to check the brain signals. So for the brain signals, this particular work we are going to demonstrate. So earlier healthcare, we have talked about the work from home for the adults, how they are the body symptoms they can get by, and that we can understand by the gestures. Now we are going to talk about the children. They are playing games for the longer amount of time. So how you can analyze the adverse gaming effects in the children? That you can done for the psychological aspects as well. You can do it using recognizing or analyzing the facial expressions as well as you can go for the brain signal, that is the electroencephalography signals. So first talk about the first method, that is by the image processing and understanding the different emotional changes that is happening in the subject's face. So this is one particular paper that is accepted in the 16th IEEE conference. This paper, what we have proposed, that is, suppose in the camera, the front camera is activated while playing the game, and from the front camera you are capturing the facial feature. From the facial feature you need to understand some, from the facial image you need to understand some features. So what are the features? Here we have considered some heart-like features. Do not go into the details right now. So heart-like features are basically those features. By that we can understand where the eyebrow are there, where the lips are there, and the movement of the lips, how much opened the lip is, how much closed the eyes are. These are basically the heart-like feature. So if you see that whenever you are angered, your eyebrows will going to be contract, your eyes will be much more spread over, and this another scenario obtained for when you are sad, your eyes will be much more closer. So this is basically different facial expression changes happen. So these, the recognition of the where the placement of the eye in the total image, where the placement of the lip in the total image, nose, that eyebrow, these total things that can be understood by the heart-like features. Now the heart-like features that are fed into a first stage of classification that we have done using the backpropagation neural network. So in the backpropagation neural network, when you are the principle of this particular first stage of classification is to understand whether the front image has a facial expression or not. It might be that the player of the video game is playing the game in such a fashion that the facial image is not captured. So our children is much more advanced than us. So you cannot tell them that whenever you are going to play the game, you have installed one particular app in your mobile. So whenever you are going to play the game, the app will automatically active and your front camera is going to take capture of the image. So they are going to place the phone in such a fashion that your facial expression will not be recognized by the camera. So if that was the case, then we should not process the images. So as there is no face, what to process? We cannot understand any emotion. So that processing whether that particular image is face or the particular image are the non-face. So for that we need the first stage of classification, that is the first stage. And the second stage, after understanding that image captured by the front camera of the player have some facial, have some face, we need to understand what are the facial expression. So that is done by the second stage of classification. That too we have done using backpropagation neural network. And what are the outcomes of this particular backpropagation neural network? Here you can see in the output level, there are basically 5 classes we can understand. The 5 classes are basically, we have concentrated on the 5 emotions. And if I refer to my book, that is the gesture recognition book, I have gone the first, I think in the 4th or 5th slide we have mentioned. There are the segregation of that thing is there by in the positive and as well as the negative sorts of emotions. So positive emotion we have considered are the happy and the surprise emotion. For the neutral, we need to understand the neutral emotion to understand how the changes are the face from the neutral towards the positive as well as the neutral towards the negative. So that is the neutral, that is the base emotion. And from for the negative side of the facial expression, we have considered sad and angry. And if you just see, that is the day 50 score calculation we have done. So basically that shows that if the line is much more goes towards up, it doesn't mean the accuracy. In the earlier case, it would have mean the accuracy. But here it means that is the how many number of times the emotions are generated. For the day 50, the number of times the negative emotions are generated are much more increased. So this is basically the neutral. You cannot consider this one. You need to comparison. You have to need the comparison between this particular part and this particular part. And you can see there is the negative emotions are generated much more the amount of time for the day 50. So that we have done. This is the comparative study of 2 different games. And from the screenshot of the 2 different games, you can understand the Candy Crush Saga is much more happy sort of game. So that is in the day 30, much more positive emotions are generated. And for these stickman occurs, you can see that is the negative emotions are much more higher than the positive emotions. That we have done. Now next, another paper that are going to be published shortly, that is in your Bangalore, as well as this conference is going to be organized. Right now it is a virtual conference. So we have submitted this paper and it's accepted. So it will be presented there. So there, what we have done, we have gone to the much deeper in the brain using the EEG signal acquisition that we have procured by the UGC grant. The system name that we have procured, that is BrainTech Traveler System. In this particular traveler system, this is the user interface of this data acquisition system. Here you can see how the different brain maps are generated. In the brains, there are different parts like frontal, prefrontal, occipital, different lobes are there from the activation levels. If this type of color, red, blue, red and yellow sorts of colors, so that is these particular colors that are on the higher side of this particular line, then you can see that is this particular lobe is much more active currently. So and these are the signals. There are 21 channels, and you can understand what are the different signals generated by playing the game. So that we have studied. Now this was all about behavioral aspects, psychological aspects. Now why not accumulate both the two things into one? That we can done using this particular thing. So here you can see that one particular paper that we have concentrated that have the EEG as well as the kinet sensor, both the two devices at the same time. Here, this particular journal, hello, can you please respond? Can you please see the screen? Hello, sir, HOD sir?
Yes, it is audible.
It's in the full screen, right?